Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Another one of League of Inches. Late in the week. Sorry, guys, been a busy week for myself. Had a big touch comp over the weekend, and body was a bit sore, and had to have a few days off and recharge the old batteries. And you'll notice to my right or to the left, or whatever way you want to look at this video, new person in the old mate Dane, which a lot of you will recognise. A bit of a out there character. We'll get some good opinions from him this week. Just quickly. Sid's not in this one. Unfortunately, he's got a bit of had a family issue, so sending out the condolences to him and his family. And he said he'll be back next week or the week after. So shout out to you, Sid, and hope you and your family are doing well. So this week we're going to do. Sid's actually done the agenda for us, so he's still there and floating around and giving us some ideas. And I'll mention some of his ideas as well in the video, but. First off, the hats off. He wanted to do a hats off. Obviously, last weekend was Indigenous round, and he had a bit of a loved it, and I think a lot of us did, and he liked the whole the post try celebrations, things like that, working the Indigenous players, and it was good to see the South game. It was all Indigenous players actually scored points in that game, which was a pretty nice touch. But it's nice to see the Indigenous getting a big recognition in this country. It doesn't happen too much, so that's good. Dane, how'd you like the Indigenous and welcome to League of Inches?
Yeah,
I know
thanks.
you're nervous.
Thanks, Joel. No, there's nothing to be nervous about. Yeah, no, look, I didn't watch much of the footy either because I was at the same comp as you over the weekend. But I think it's good that we support the Indigenous, and I think it's good for NRL. So
There we go. We'll get straight into it. So, first tackle, we've got Sid's pointed out Blake Green, the shock move, obviously. It's, 8 rounds to go or something, and there's still some transfers going on and players getting sold, which is crazy, but I think that sums up this kind of year what we've had so far. And obviously, he's gone from Warriors to the Knights. Good pick up for the Knights for mine. I think they've needed that steady hand in the halves and to steer the ship around all season. I think they're starting to lose their way a little bit. So just to have someone like Blake Green in there is going to be massive for him. But also, I think for the Warriors, I think it's a massive loss. I think they needed those footy heads in and around that club at the moment, and I think he's going to be a massive loss. And um, it could be a little downhill trend now for them for the rest of the season, unfortunately. But what did you make of the Blake Green move?
yeah, I think the move was a little bit ugly from what I understand from the Warriors side, with the coach and the owner of the Warriors being, I don't know, a little bit sort of blindsided by it, but they sort of mentioned that they weren't going to extend his contract and so forth. So what other options does that leave for him? And I think he leaves with, there's a bit of experience that sort of leaves with him as well. But I think he is a good pickup for the Knights, and I think he'll gel pretty well with Pearce over at the Knights. So he's a big loss and a great gain for the Knights.
Yeah, well, just last week I mentioned that they just lost their three first choice hookers, and now Kurt Mann obviously goes into that position for the Knights, and he's been in a bit of form this year, so I reckon he's going to hold that position quite well, considering he's not really a starting hooker. He's more of a running 5'8", but he can bring that running game to the hooker role and go with that. But Blake Green's going to be one of those figures where you've sort of seen it last year and things like that with Cooper Cronk as a sort of an on-field coach for him. So he's got that footy smarts up there, and it'd be good to see how they click. I think it's what Pearce has needed. We've had Sid talk about it a couple of weeks now that Pearce doesn't seem to be handling the pressure, I think, as well as what he probably could have with running that team. And now I think we'll see Ponga get a bit more involved and run off Blake Green, so to speak. So, a second tackle, we're just going to have a bit of a chat about the injuries at the moment. There's obviously quite a bit. And Sid's made mention here that it's probably the no bias factor, which is having a pretty big impact. There's normally this time of year, there's quite a few buys happening, and teams get to refresh with the rep rounds and origin and things like that happening. So I think it's a good point. I think you can see with a lot of the teams at the moment, they sort of get to that fatigue stage where it's sort of you're rolling through a game, and honestly, you're just out there to get the 2 points at the end of it. I think we saw Para on the weekend against the Dogs, where they just sort of got to that stage where it was like, we just need to hold on here and get these 2 points and just get out of here. We don't really care about the margin and things like that. So, um, and teams like obviously the Roosters and things like that, where they've got some injuries and stuff, but it's just that time of year where you just rack up a few of the wins, and when it gets to the later end of the season, you think, oh righto, I've actually done that the hard work in the middle of the year, and now it's sort of go off from there. What I think we'll start seeing though is, and we've started to see it with a few teams, is a bit of players getting rested for a week or two, or not rushing them back. We've got, say, the Roosters with Boyd Cordner with his HIA. They're not really rushing him at the moment, getting him, I guess, refreshed for the back end. And I guess Para with Maddo, and there's a couple of others out there at the moment. So, what are you making with the injuries in that at the moment, Dave?
Yeah, well, I think with not having the buy rounds, I think as you just sort of touched on, a lot of the clubs have sort of forced to rest players, and as you mentioned as well, not rush them back in if they've had some sort of little niggling injuries and so forth. So yeah, I think it does play a toll, and coming into finals, which finals is not too far away, teams will be forced to rest players to just sort of refresh them so that they've got that spark come finals time. So yeah, I definitely think it plays a big part.
Yeah, perfect. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, Dane's a tragic Roosters man. So your club's obviously been dealing with the injuries quite a bit lately. It's sort of obviously got the signing of Sonny Bill coming in at the end of the year to sort of freshen things up, I guess, a bit. But how do you think your club is as a whole is travelling at the moment with the injuries and things like that?
Yeah, well, obviously a little bit unfortunate with Verrills and Radley going out. They're key parts of our team, but we've got a lot of depth, and there's a lot of talent throughout the whole Roosters club, and obviously a lot of money as well because we can pretty much buy any player that we want. So, but look, I think Sonny Bill will be. I think he'll be a good asset, but he isn't getting any younger either. By the same token, so he's not going to have that explosiveness of breaking tackles and so forth. But I still think we've got a pretty solid team. Whether we can do the three-peat, I don't know, but I think we'll be there come finals time, and we'll put up a pretty good fight with any team that we face in the finals. But I think we're travelling reasonably well at the moment, and having Lachlan Lamb in last night, Flanagan sort of being dropped, it just shows the level that the Roosters require from their players as well. So you've got to play at the highest level. You've got to do things right, otherwise, you can be dropped for it. So, but I think we've got a pretty good team all in all. But there's a lot of other good teams out there that we've got to beat to be victorious again. So.
I think that dropping as well, that showed how good of a coach Robinson is, because a lot of coaches, it's their main halfback, their star halfback signing, I guess, so to speak. He's a young gun. A lot of people just kept pushing him. You see people like the Broncos with Croft and things like that. They're pushing him on to hoping they get better. I think it was a good sign from Robson just to go, you know what, let's give him a week or two off to also freshen up, because it's the first season for him fully, and he's in probably the biggest club in the NRL at the moment. So it's been a tough job for a 21 year old to come into that lineup and try and steer that ship single handedly. Where Kiri's mainly obviously being there as well to help out, but losing Cordner and things like that, the captains and things like that wouldn't have helped him. But also, as you said, I think with the Verrills injury, it's actually put a lot of pressure on Friend as well. He's got to basically make sure he doesn't get injured. If he gets injured, it's going to be not panic stations, but it's going to be some hard games to win after that, because your two hookers are going to be basically out. So I've noticed the last couple of weeks, Friendy has been playing a little bit, I know not injured, but he just seems to be a bit fragile at the moment with some of his body, and it'll be interesting how he goes for the remainder of the season. But hopefully there's no more injuries, because we want to see the comp with all the star players in, and people like Turbo Trebojevic and things like that. We want to see them all get back, and the comp's obviously best when the star players are in. So it'd be good to watch the back half of the year with all these stars running around fully fit. So number 3, and Sid loves his. He loves throwing some spinner in the works to get people talking, and I'll tell you what, after reading this one, he's definitely done that, because I don't know, people are going to have their opinions on this one for sure. Where he wants to talk about Cameron Smith, and is he being a bit selfish at the moment with his contract talk? And obviously they've got two other hookers and two very good young hookers there with the hectic cheese, Brandon Smith, and Harry Grant over at Tigers, which is obviously he's going to be one of the best hookers in the game over the next couple of years, and I think that's easy to say that. But is Smith being a bit selfish in terms of not having said what he's doing it for next year. Obviously, if he chooses to go on, Grant can stay at the Tigers full time and sign a contract with them. If Smith decides to leave, he has to come back and play with the Storm basically from next year. And you obviously got Brandon Smith, who's said a number of times he wants to play hooker. He's in playing prop and lock forward at the moment. He's the nuggetiest prop I've ever seen in my life, but he does a good thick of it. And interesting to see how this plays out for the next couple of weeks because, as we said, they're two of probably the best young hookers in the game, and Storm have a pretty big, well, not Storm, but Cameron Smith has a big decision to make, and he obviously is based at Brisbane as well, so I reckon he'll end up moving back there with his family once he does retire. Where do you see the Cam Smith situation?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit open ended. I don't know if he's been selfish. To a certain extent, yes, because he can sort of command the money, the top end money, that top players, can command. But I think he's a little bit unknown with his body. I mean, we just saw him pick up I think it was a shoulder injury over the weekend, and I don't think he runs the ball as much these days. Where if you look at like your Brandon Smiths and so forth, they're very hungry, very aggressive, and they want to run the ball and break tackles and things like that. And I did hear a little whisper too that Cam Smith's got his kids in school in Brisbane. So, and I know there's been a little bit of talk about, a little bit of talk about he might even look to sign with the Broncos and finish his career there. So it's a little bit sort of open ended at the moment, but I don't think he's going to get the money that he's getting now for his next contract if he does decide to play on. But interested to see what he does, and he's been pretty tight-lipped about it. So it's watch this space, I suppose, to see how that eventuates towards the back end of the year. So
is that you trying to get yourself a contract on this channel, eh? You've come on and you've got a massive whisper straight away. That's some big news to report there. Wow, wait.
Yeah, they call me Dane Icon. So.
I think the other thing with Smith is that I think it's definitely not a matter of when, not if he'll become a coach. I think that's obviously something that will be down the track. And I think that might be rapid fire. I think in terms of if there's going to be a second Brizzy team or something, I reckon they might go after him for that sort of role as well. So I think that might take there might be some weighing up to do with that sort of option as well because he's obviously got a very good footy brain. And I think with this injury, it's going to, because he's had a great run with injury. He hasn't really, I can't remember the last time he was out injured, to be honest, but just be interesting how this plays with his mind as well. Sometimes with the older players, once they get one injury, they start to go, all right, it's time to sort of get out before I just get riddled with injuries for another year. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But number 4, it's the Penny Panthers, and it's basically just a question of if they're the real deal or not. I've said for a number of weeks, for some reason, there's been something in there that I haven't got with Penrith yet to classify them with the Storm and the Roosters. Obviously, those two teams for mine are the heavyweights at the moment, with probably Para and then probably Penrith there for mine. With the Raiders probably just below that if they can get some troops back. But I did watch a bit of their highlights from last weekend's game, and I'm starting to see they actually are performing to become that real deal. My only thing is that they've had actually a pretty easy run lately. They've actually haven't really had many teams to really challenge them when it was there and the game was there. They've been able to just control the game pretty well to what they want. I want to see them play a game where they have to work for it and they can't play their style of play. They've got to make some changes on the run, which I'm yet to see. Look, they are up there for mine, but I guess Mr. Premiership heavyweight over here and his team's won a couple in a row. You're worried about the Panthers at the moment, or what?
Yeah, look, I haven't watched a whole lot of their games, but from what I have seen, they do look the real deal. And Cleary's doing a fantastic job, and I think he's put on a bit of size, and I think he steers the team around the park pretty well. As you sort of touched on, it would be really interesting to see how they respond if they've got to get into a real tough grind, to win a match. And obviously, when they come up against a team like the Roosters, the Storm, and Para, I think that's where you're really going to see, the best of the Panthers or potentially see the worst. But, as I see it, I think they are, top weight contenders. And, I can't wait to see them in a real tough grind.
I think with Penrith as well, I think they've been lucky in terms of, if for me, when I watch Penrith and I think about Panthers and obviously opposition coaches when they're going into versus them, there's three players you pick out where you want to target and make them work and you want to defend them, which is obviously Coruscant at hooker, Cleary at halfback, and you've got Kikau over on the left edge, which is probably the most damaging second rower in the game. And for mine, they've been very lucky in terms of injuries with those three so far. Obviously, they lost Coruscant a couple of weeks ago for just the 1 week to get his elbow fixed up. But if they start to get this injury curse like a lot of other teams have and they lose a couple of those key guys, there could be some issues there for them down the track. It'll be a real test of their depth as well, I think. They've actually been super lucky with even their centres and that with Crichton and some of their form out the back line have just been steady on and continue to roll on. But we'll move on to 5, and yeah, it's a fair point that Sid raises with this one. He's questioned if the send off's dead. Now, I'm I'm going to guess there's something happened on the weekend that I obviously missed playing some touch footy, and there should have been a send off or something there. But I'm just going to talk off what I've seen from the past with some of the things, and it looks like the referees are a little bit gun shy with it. I think they think too much about the overall impact to the game that a send off would have for the team, being down a player for the remainder of the game. But I also think they're a bit shy with the sin bin as well. I don't think they use that enough. So that's my personal opinion. What's yours, Mister Premiership campaigner?
Yeah, no, look, I totally agree with that. I don't think there's enough sin binnings and send offs, and even just based on the Roosters Dragons game last night, really late in the game when Kiri scored a try, and I don't know who the player was, but he stuck his legs out and tripped him. And looking at that when they reviewed it, that's just a straight send off. That's a professional foul every day of the week. So yeah, I think the refs do need to be a little bit harder, and I think they're using the six again rule quite well, and I quite like that. But when it comes to yeah, sin bins and send offs, I don't think there's enough of them, and I think some of the penalties can warrant those. So I think they need to get a little bit tougher. But I suppose being a referee, it's a tough gig, and you get criticised for everything that you do and everything that you don't do. But I'd like to see more of it because if you're going to have grubs out there doing grubby things, well then they should be penalised for it. So
You also you look to me like a bit of a ref as well. I reckon you'd suit being a ref. Oh wait, that's right. You have done refereeing for a while, so um, I think the other thing with it, I think we just want to see as fans, you want to see, and so channels obviously for the fans and from a fan's point of view, that we just want to see consistency with these calls. Like I can remember being obviously a Para fan. You think about the calls that you've received, and I remember when we versed the Roosters and Jennings was sin bin for being offside, which I've never seen an offside sin binning in my life. And I've seen, since it's happened, I've made a real look at watching players who get penalised for offsides, and then I've seen many more players do it even more offside than what Jennings did, and it's just a penalty every time. So I don't get how one instance can be such a foreclosed conclusion of being an offside and a sin bin, where you've got other ones that have been exactly the same as that, and they don't have any consequences of that nature. And at the time, we were in a dogfight with these guys, and I think they were ahead by 2 at the point, and obviously went on to lose that by 14 or something. So, but we just want to see a bit of consistency. And look, I guess to answer Sid's question, it does look like the send off is a bit dead and buried. Um, it's going to have to take probably someone doing a kung fu kick to someone's head to basically get send off at this point, or running up and I don't know, giving the referee one a quick 1-2 or something. I don't know, but I can't see that happening for a long time. So now 6, and oh, we all know, everyone's been listening to the channel knows that Sid loves the Warriors. He's been there was his wooden spoon prediction from the start of the year. I think he's trying to ride that to make it happen. Now, his unpopular opinion he wanted to do, which told you he loves to throw the old spinner in the works, good old Sid. He wants to know if this pandemic, which looked like it's growing some legs again, is this if this continues on into next season, which has been some talk the last week or so that it might be. People are saying that the Storm have to start at Sunny Coast. I've heard for next year, and Warriors might have to stay over in Australia and in Terrigal for the next year to come. Now, his question is: should the Warriors be kicked out of the competition for the good of their players if this pandemic rolls on to next year? Now, the second part to this is the pros and cons if it does happen, and what team you'd bring in. Now, would it be a good way for the NRL to use it to bring in that second Brisbane team, or go into a Central Coast Bears type look as it is sort of the Terrigal base? Or maybe an NRL funded retro team for a year and see how it goes, like the Newtown Jets or something. Now, um, I, I can see where he's sort of coming from with it, but I also see where I think the NRL has a thing in the show this year that there's a bit of a fighting spirit there, and I think the Warriors have actually showed a bit of grit and determination. And it's obviously hard. They've got a lot of those players have had young kids and been away from them for 5 6 months or whatever is tough. I think it's a bit unfair to suggest kicking him out of the comp. I think they've actually been the reason why the comps continue to go. So it's sort of hard to go, well, thanks for that and see you later. But at the same time, I do think it's a good time to, I guess, think of ideas and bring in maybe another team. But you've got to be very smart about that. I think everyone knows this Brisbane second team's coming. It's just a matter of when. I think this pandemic may have put it off for about a year or two to get the money back in the game and flowing to actually make sure it's viable and continues to work. I don't know. What do you think about this one? What's your thoughts on the Warriors at the moment?
It's a bit of a tough one. I don't think they can be kicked out of the competition because they've sacrificed a lot to be based over here. And I think another thing too, like with that second Brisbane team, that probably will be, a couple of years off, I think, because I did hear that having the Melbourne Storm based up here and also the Warriors, it's costing just for each of those teams somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000 a week for all the staff personnel, your hotel costs and things like that. So that's got to hurt the NRL's budget a little bit. So that might delay that second Brisbane team. But no, look, I think they deserve their place here and they've sacrificed a lot. So, what does a future sort of hold? I mean, I think it's tough for them. And we've already seen, some player and I think a couple of coaches that have broken the strict COVID protocols and so forth. So, people are sort of, I don't know, they're getting a little bit sort of bored with it and starting to sort of stray a little bit, which is pretty tough. But
to get to that frustrating period, that's what I've noticed now is that if you lock an animal in a cage for a certain amount of time, and this is what these players are like sometimes, they're all jacked up with their weights and things like that. And it's getting to that point now of the season where it's going to, I think the gap between the good teams and the bad teams is going to increase rapidly in the next couple of weeks because the ones that are committed to it and are serious, which we've seen obviously during the COVID break, the teams that came back fit, like the Roosters, Parra, things like that. And then the other teams that didn't, like your Broncos and that. It's going to be now, all right, we've been locked down in all this bubble for a while now. What do we do? Do we commit to the cause or do we go, you know what, let's give up on this season and go from that? How would you like being locked up for this amount of time?
Yeah, I personally couldn't do it. I think it'd be too tough. But and that's where you got to throw some credit to all the teams that have had to relocate, and even with the likes of Canberra, I think they're doing transit, the day of, and and going back as well on the same day, and that's pretty tough. That's got to affect their performance in some way, but they keep showing up, putting in good performances and playing for each other, and I think that's that's got to be mentioned. But in regards to another team. I mean, I think, if a team was to go, I reckon get rid of the Brisbane Broncos and throw our Gold Coast Touch team in there. I think we could do some serious damage. I showed with, I've got a pretty solid shoulder over the weekend. So, I reckon we could go pretty well, Joel.
Oh, shout out to TRL out there. We'll give you a little bit of shout out on the channel. It was a good
All
weekend
the
of
boys.
footy. So all the lads and all the chicks and that out there that played, it's a good bit of fun. And Who knows? Might try and do something with that down the track with the channel and show you guys a bit of an insight into a game that's basically NRL, but it's just touch. So good for the kids not to get involved with. But look, we can't support your decision there, Sid. Sorry, we can't kick the Warriors out. If anything, if they do have to go again next year, I guess we'll have a quick chat about what to do with that. And I think if they have to stay over here, we just be a bit more lenient with the loan system and maybe give them some discounts on signing players for a year off. We've seen at the moment with players that aren't getting chosen, they just sit around for the week, and then on game day they don't do anything. So, and there's a number of players out there that are doing it, and surely we can work out a way where some of these players you can pick one or two from each club or something and go over there and help them out and get them into a successful running team, because it'd be quite the story if we can get them successful, say next year after what's happened. And it's sort of like you can see a movie or something happening from it. It'd be one of those sort of stories. And we used to put more of the loan system for players, or any ideas you'd throw out for them next year if they've got to stay here again?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, and you sort of see it over in like the English Premier League and things like that with the soccer. And I think the other thing that hurts the NRL teams at the moment is there's no second tier footy at the moment. So if you do get a lot of injuries and so forth, you've got to bring players into the bubble that are effectively they're not match fit.
Mm.
And I think that's going to hurt a lot of clubs if they do pick up a number of injuries or suspensions or what have you. So, I mean, at least we're seeing some footy. I think that's a positive, and they're doing their best to make sure that it continues on. But I think it'll be interesting to see over the next sort of couple of months, and then what happens with this whole COVID situation early next year, as to how it all sort of unfolds.
Yeah, perfect. Well, mate, honestly, you've been tremendous so far. I think you've put your name down in the hat, and might be a bit of a three-way going on for a couple of weeks to come here. But just quickly, I know obviously you're a Roosters fan, and I asked Sid this when we first had him on, but what made you become a Roosters fan?
Um, I don't know. My family support the Bulldogs, to be honest, but
Oh, doggies.
yeah, the Bulldogs. No, I just who was it? It was a player. I can't remember his name now. Matty Singh.
Oh,
I loved watching Matty Singh play, and that's
a lot of people forget he was at the Roosters. Eh?
yeah. He was just a gun, just quick, and
Very skinny.
he's actually the reason that I started supporting the Roosters, and plus they've got a lot of money as well, so they
Not saying he's a gold digger.
yeah, but I just wanted to be a little bit different to the rest of the family. Didn't want to be a sheep, and yeah, Matty Singh, he just got me on board and haven't looked back since. Been through some lows and some highs, and at the moment we're sort of right on that high. And who knows if we'll get the three-peat, but they're up there at the moment, and they've just got to be there come the pointy end of the season. So
Are you confident about the three, Pete?
no, I wouldn't say that I'm highly confident. I think if we still had Radley and Verrills, and I, I, I think I'd be pretty confident. But I think it's pretty open at the moment. I think it's pretty tight up the top between the Eels, the Storm, the Roosters, and throw the Panthers in there as well. So I just hope that injuries and suspensions keep as many top players on the field as possible, so that we can see some really good footy come finals time. So.
Is the Cordner situation a bit of a worry? I guess he's been out for quite a bit on and off this year so far, and is it a sign that obviously he's been through a couple of state of origin campaigns and the rigours of season to season footy? You're a bit worried for your captain at the moment.
No, I don't think so. I think he's going to come back pretty fresh, and he's going to be raring and ready to go. So I think having this little break's going to be good for him, and I think he's going to pump the team up. He's a very passionate player. No, I think it's going to do him a lot of good, and I think he'll come back pretty fired up and lead the team around the park, and hopefully we can get a lot more victories leading into the finals.
And I guess as a Roosters fan, last question for you: what's a team that you love to beat? That team that you just love going? Yeah, beat them.
Oh, look, for me, and it's probably the same for a lot of Roosters supporters. Being Melbourne Storm,
Yeah.
I can't stand the Storm. They've got a good team. I do like watching them play, but just their style of footy. When they introduced the wrestle and the crusher and things like that, and obviously, they probably need some pointers from the Roosters on, how to handle the salary cap, but they got a couple of titles stripped off them and things like that. But yeah, for me, the Storm beating the Storm is bittersweet.
It's probably the best modern day rivalry going in the game. So, all right, you've done well. You've got a last minute job pitch to keep you on. You got
Oh
something
yeah, look,
for
I
us?
just think I'm better looking than you, Joel, and
Yeah, not hard.
bit more well spoken and a bit more organised. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be happy to have you on as my assistant. So
Yeah, sweet.
you just qualify for it. But I do want to just say a quick shout out to Sydney's family. Just all the best, given the tough time at the moment, mate. So even though I haven't met you or spoken to you, but I rate you on this show. So yeah, all the best, mate, to you and your family.
We'll have
And
to.
thanks, Joel, for having me.
No, that's all right. We'll organise that soon. And yeah, once again, last thing is Sid. Hope you and your family are doing well. And always a sad time at the moment, but we're all here for you. Ever need to chat or whatever, we got you. And hopefully we can get you back on, have a bit of a chat. I know you love your footy, so get your head back into that. And but yeah, thanks Dane for popping in, having a chat with us, talking all things footy from the fans' point of view. And I know you're a bit of a footy tragic yourself, so it's good to have another point of view on, and it's always refreshing. And as we said, we always encourage people who want to have a bit of come on and have a bit of a chat. You're always welcome. So send me a message if you want to do so. But enjoy the rest of it's a weekend about to start, so enjoy your footy and hopefully your team gets up and obviously go the mighty Eels. So we're coming for you, baby.